Hi, everyone. Marcos Colon here, Director of Digital Community and Content Development at the Cyber Risk Alliance. And I want to thank you for being in focus with us today. Now, in this next segment, we're going to be lucky enough to be joined by Derek Mankey, who heads up Security Insights and Global Threat Alliances at Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. Derek, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, it's a pleasure, Marcos. Really happy to be here.
So today we're going to be discussing threat intelligence, and this is an area of cybersecurity that I think at one point was kind of seen as a distant frontier, but then the true value of threat intel made itself really apparent once organizations began really, information sharing at scale. What type of threat intelligence is needed to keep up with this vast array of digital assaults?
You talked about the sort of just hinted on the past of threat intelligence. I think there was this fatigue in the industry that happened, 5 to even creeping up on a decade ago, where the first sort of generation, if you will, of threat intelligence was just streams. It was just feeds, flat lists with no context of IOCs, things that change very quickly and easily for cyber criminals. Things like IP addresses, hashes, URLs. When it comes to evasion, those are, more than a dime a dozen when it comes to cyber criminals, right? I mean, it's so easy for them to change, especially do that on an automated level. So it's always just a game of cat and mouse. And from a security perspective, it's just simply not as effective. We have to rely on that automation still. But it's a no-brainer, if you will. But it's not the world of threat. I wouldn't call it intelligence. I mean, that's just feeds, right? If you look at true threat intelligence, it's really focusing on those tactics and techniques, the true movement, the digital DNA, if you will, of these attack groups. So looking at not just the what, but the why, the how, ultimately the who. That's what we're trying to do from an attribution standpoint. So really, if we shift gears into what is valuable threat intelligence today, what we're doing at FortiGuard Labs, as an example, is creating playbooks, so adversarial playbooks. So this is a complete guide as to, again, tools that attackers are using. So what is the malware, the botnet? Where are they connecting to? What do the protocols look like? And most importantly, now that you know and understand the attacks, how, from a playbook perspective, as a CSO, as an example, or even as a technical SOC admin, how do you start responding to those attacks? So we've really turned this upside down, Marcos. We've gone from focusing on just 10 years ago, a decade ago, focusing on a feed to actually focusing on from a threat hunting perspective, right? That's what we do at FortiGuard Labs. We look at the actual groups themselves and the tools, and then we dig further into those tools and we find out more. So these are seeds that we expand on. So we're taking a top-down approach to threat intel. Once we understand that, we can push that into automation. We push that out to more than 500,000 customers that we have through our security fabric at Fortinet, as an example. So that all comes down to actionable threat intel. That last mile, how do you take the intelligence and actually make it actionable to stop the threats?
So let's talk a little bit. I'm interested in hearing about what you guys are seeing out there. You and your team are really on the front line. So what are some big trends you're seeing, and what types of threats are top of mind right now?
I always say that the quote unquote legacy threats still exist. I mean, email has been actually not even one of it, has been the most prevalent attack vector since the 90s, right? For attackers. They just simply still enjoy success, unfortunately, off of this. I think a lot of people, thankfully, over the period of about 15 to 20 years have started to become aware that, 419 scams, as an example, are a real thing. But that learning curve, that learning process is just too long. We're trying to really speed that up because email is still a prevalent vector. But if we just released our first half 2020 report for our global threat landscape report for FortiGuard Labs, and for the first time, we've seen web-based threats actually surpass email threats as a preferred vector. But email is still very much there. But now, if we look at the web-based threats, we're looking at web-based attacks, attacking browsers. Why? Because obviously with the global pandemic that we've seen for the first half of 2020, it's been a huge teleworkforce presence. A lot of people working from home, and these systems are now connected to. They've gone outside of that perimeter, right? So now they're connected to home networks, and we're seeing in our top 10 attacks, IoT devices, DVRs, consumer grade routers are up there in the top 3 attacks we're seeing, just because cyber criminals see an opportunity for that, right? And so that is that's been a big shift that we've seen in terms of trends. Moving forward on that too, another highlight that we saw this year is that vulnerabilities. So we're on pace to break the record for the amount of vulnerabilities that have been discovered in a year. We're only halfway through this period, but we're certainly on track to beat that. But what's interesting is that even though we've seen a record amount of vulnerabilities discovered in 2020 so far, attackers aren't using it. They're not leveraging it. And most of the attacks we're seeing are CVEs or vulnerabilities from 2018. And what that means is, again, attackers are enjoying success on these vulnerabilities that are 2 years old. And now they have this growing array of exploits, weapons, if you will, in their arsenal that they're just putting up their side. They're putting in their pocket and they're not having to use yet. So there's something to definitely take into consideration moving forward. And that comes down to the whole, patch management discussion that we've been having for years too.
There's obviously been a lot of recent developments in technology that assist a lot of security practitioners out there. But at the same time, it seems like the bad guys always kind of take that and use it to their advantage as well. Is there really an opportunity for a lot of organizations out there to really get ahead of threats at some point through perhaps federated machine learning, or have attackers already sort of started showing signs of benefiting off of that as well?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting discussion. For those of people who might not know what federated machine learning is, it's really exciting to me personally, first of all. But if we look at the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning traditionally has been centralized, cloud-based. So it's a lot of these feeder nodes that send some bits of intelligence up to the cloud. Voice recognition is a good example. It recognizes, it processes, it gives a response. That certainly exists in cybersecurity. I mean, we rolled out a solution like that, FortiGuard AI, 6 years ago, and it's really relevant to obtain new pieces of malware or viruses, respond, analyze it, make a decision on its own. Like, this is actually a new zero-day threat. Push out protection to respond it. That's useful. But as we shift now, the attack surface is shifting into the next. Digital transformation. We're going into the world of OT, operational technology, and 5G. And what that means is that things are becoming decentralized now, not just cloud-based. And so that means you have to be able to process that and act on that on premises. And this is where the world of federated machine learning comes in, because now we're not talking just about centralized artificial intelligence machine learning, but on premises AI and ML, different nodes that can actually process so this is edge-based computing, right? Process this on their own, and then talk to other devices, i.e. security devices, to make an informed decision. So going back to your question, yeah, I think that we're definitely at a great opportunity here, where we've actually in the security industry invested in this for years now. So I think as security professionals in the industry, we have an advantage here.
What are your thoughts about the new network edges of today and how to leverage threat intel as a means to protect them going forward as the perimeter continues to shift into the infrastructure? Something that's been really top of mind for a lot of security leaders, a lot of organizations across the whole, even outside of obviously security specifically. But this is something that's really top of mind for a lot of our viewers out there.
Yeah, and this is not just a nice to have. This is a critical must have, I think, moving forward, because like I said, I do believe that we have the advantage to turn this around and really to reduce that alarming growing rate for, as a worldwide trend for cybercrime. The attackers enjoy a lot of success. Cybercrime has no borders. They can, cyber criminals can do a million things wrong, one thing, and they don't care. For us, we need to be precise. So we've always been inhibited by that. But again, the world of federated machine learning, edge computing, big data sample pools and processing powers, and the algorithms and the smart people that we've brought to the table, quite frankly, we outnumber, I think, what the cyber criminals are doing. And so that gives us the opportunity for advantage. In order to make that successful, you need to combine everything we've been talking about, threat intelligence into a solution that can, a holistic approach, not just one centralized processing. It has to be end-to-end security segmentation, intelligence things. So this is again what we've been working on with our security fabric as an example, where you have multiple devices that can interoperate, talk to each other, make informed decisions based off that machine learning. So as an example, a sandbox talking to a mail appliance, talking to endpoint software on the system, secure Wi-Fi access points that are able to scan through IoT and OT devices that are connecting over Wi-Fi, roaming in and out of networks as an example, especially as we get into the world of 5G. It's going to be fast, furious, and you need A, infrastructure and technology in terms of pipes and bandwidth that can catch up to that, but B, married with really good world-class threat intelligence that can be actionable. And once you have that, then that becomes very, very effective. And once that is more actively deployed around the world, I think we'll start to see a very positive impact on the war on cybercrime too.
It's a rapidly evolving world, but luckily we have guys like you on our side. That about wraps it up for this segment of In Focus. I want to say many thanks to Derek Mankey of Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. Thank you for tuning in today. Derek, thank you for being with us.
It was a pleasure, and rest assured, we will be here 24/7, 365.